Hello and welcome to Video Notes 3.6. Today we're going to talk about two other sort of flavors of experimental design called matched pairs design and multi-factor design. Both of these actually you've already sort of figured out or been hinted at. Some of you have mentioned these like naturally. You just didn't know the names for them. Yeah, let's get into it first with matched pairs design. So last lesson we actually did a little lesson about hand-eye coordination. And having you in one of the two treatment groups of either using both eyes or just needing to use one eye. And so we blocked for the gaming habits because we thought maybe that might affect the hand-eye coordination of things and influence our results. But as I was walking around and talking with you all, and maybe even Mr. Dobrovich's class, they talked about this as well, is that some people had the idea of like, well, why didn't we do both treatments? Like, why couldn't we do two eyes and then do one eye and sort of see like, is there a difference between just us, doing those things? Well, that idea is called a matched pairs design. And so it's actually technically a special type of blocking. So what we do is we design the experiment where the same individual experiences all the treatments, or sometimes matched pairs don't do same individual, but instead individuals with similarities. Most often, this is with twins. Identical twins are great to use for these sorts of scenarios because if they are identical twins and it has something to do with sort of like their, their body, their health or whatever, because they're identical, it kind of works out well. And so the twins would be paired together and undergo two separate treatments instead, but they're sort of treated as like a single person in that sense. And so the goal here is hopefully to reduce the variation in our data because of the uncontrollable factors. So we don't have to worry about like, oh, well, this treatment group had, this more people in this group had this going on with them. More gaming people were in this group, or, more people from higher income groups or in this class, this particular treatment group, because everybody's going through the same treatments, or you're sort of taking like essentially the same people with like twins and sort of splitting them up. If you recall, one of our key principles of an experiment is randomization. And so in this particular case, we've been thinking about randomization as being us taking our subjects and randomly assigning them to the different treatment groups. Well, if everybody's going through all the treatments, then how is it that you can do randomization? That sort of seems impossible now. Well, we actually do have a simple solution for this. What we'll do is we'll randomize what order each subject goes through the different treatments. So if we were to redo this hand-eye coordination experiment, rather than me randomly assigning you to both eyes or one eye, what I would end up doing is we would randomly assign you to both eyes first, followed by one eye, or one eye first, followed by both eyes. That's the randomization element for us. So we're going to talk about matched pairs here with regard to the example that Mr. Dobrovich started for us many videos ago here about subjects who are clinically depressed, 108 subjects who are clinically depressed, and we want to sort of run them through some treatments. So a matched pairs scenario in this case might look something like this, where we think about we're going to take every single subject and they're going to go through both of the treatments of taking antidepressants for 2 months, taking a placebo for 2 months. So what I want you to do is I want you to try to design this experiment. I want you to pause the video right now and go through and try to fill in all the blanks as best you can. And then when you feel like you've done as much as you can, you've understood it, unpause and take a look at what I said. All right, so here are the answers I came up with. Factor. We're talking about medication here for depression, so antidepressant medication. Our response variable, I'm just going to call it mental health. I'm sure if I was better versed in the therapist psychology world, there might be a better sort of name for it. But we're just going to go with mental health. There's 2 levels here. They're going to take antidepressants or take a placebo, and the treatments are the same as those levels, except for to clarify that we're doing matched pairs, so every subject will experience both levels. And we're dealing with 108 clinically depressed subjects. Our assignment is we're going to number every subject 000 to 107, use an SRS to select the first 54, and those are going to be put into the control group and take a placebo. And then the rest of the 54 are going to be taking the antidepressant. After 2 months, though, we're going to switch the 2 groups so that way they experience the other treatment as well. And so this placebo does make sure that we are blinding our subjects, which is good. We could also have a third party do that assignment that I just described, so that way the evaluators, the ones that are judging how is this subject's mental health, are also blinded as well. They won't know whether the subject is or is not taking the actual medication. Here's my diagram here. So 108 subjects. SRS splits them into these 2 groups where you can see I wrote that they go through both of the treatments, but the order is different. Oh, that should say the word then, not the. And at the end, we compare mental health. And in reality, actually, and this is what the results will sort of explain, is that if we see a statistically significant improvement in mental health for subjects while on antidepressants compared to the placebo, then we have evidence that the antidepressants cause better mental health. So we'll be doing sort of evaluations throughout. So like really, maybe this diagram doesn't fully capture it all, which it's like 108 subjects, antidepressant, placebo, compare, then switch to the treatments and do some more comparing. But this is a totally fine idea for the idea for the actual match pairs. So if you noticed anything as I was going through that you needed to fix, pause, erase, adjust, and then after that, let's move on to the backside. So for the most part, we've been dealing with just a single factor, which is, usually the case. However, sometimes in our experiment, we want to deal with multiple factors. And in that scenario, then our treatments are not necessarily the same as our levels. We've been writing that a lot. It's like, levels, you list them all out, and then treatments, and then you write same as levels. But if you have multiple factors, that's not going to be the case necessarily. So, for example, Mr. Dobrovich went over something like this. I think I changed the values here a little bit, but what if we were dealing with 2 different factors, talk therapy and medication? So in talk therapy, what if we split the levels into they have no talk therapy, they go talk therapy once a month, twice a month. And then the other factor, medication, we split into, you're taking it, or actually you're just taking a placebo. So in that scenario, we actually have 5 levels. Okay, we have, 0, 1, 2 times a month, medication, no medication. That's 5. But what we'll actually end up with when we try to combine all these together is 6 different treatment groups. So Mr. Dobrovich did actually sort of show this in his notes from a few times ago, where he drew out this little model that I really like that explains why having these 5 different levels actually gets us 6 treatment groups, because we're sort of thinking about we have to do every combination possible of these things. So we have here talk therapy, which was 0 times per week, 1 time per week, 2 times per week. That's not supposed to be week, that's supposed to be month. Yeah. And then we have over here medication. And that's just binary. Yes, you're taking it. No, you're not. And then remember, the no actually is taking a placebo. And so you can see that this gives us our 6 different groups here. So this first group here, that we'll call group number 1, has no talk therapy, yes, antidepressant. Group 2 here has talk therapy of once a month and takes the antidepressant. Here, group 3, 2 times per month, and yes, antidepressant. But then here we got group 4, no talk therapy, no antidepressant. That group is like the control of all controls. And then group 5, we have here 1 time per month of talk therapy with no antidepressant. And group 6 is going to be that's 2 hours per month with no antidepressant. So there you have it. That's why having these different levels of 5, different levels, actually gives us 6. So I really like this sort of drawing out like a little like area model type thing here that explains Punnett square for those of you in your biology. That sort of helps you sort of think about like what are all the different scenarios and different ways you can sort of pair these together. Somebody asked me in class about like, can you do 3 factors? And I suppose you could. You'd have to go a 3-dimensional model in order to try to figure that out. But we'll talk a little bit about like maybe some of the drawbacks to trying to do multiple factors in a little bit here. All right, so ultimately, our multiple factors. Oh wait, I didn't. I had an edit that didn't come through here. I apologize for that. So I wonder if it's on your notes though. I don't know. If your notes look like this, great, just follow along. And I probably drew this too big, and I apologize. What I actually wanted you to do on your own, and you could do that over here, is to diagram out the experiment here as listed. Maybe if this isn't enough space, feel free to like jump down here instead and use this space to answer the last question or whatever, or grab a different piece of paper and draw out your diagram, but diagram out what it would look like in order to do this. So we'll check in on that diagram together as a class. The last thing I want you to think about, and this will be, again, something I'll leave to you, is multi-factor experiments are pretty cool because if you do have different things that you think will, cause some reaction in a treatment or thing like that, and you can test them at the same time on the same group. That's kind of nice. So if you think like talk therapy works, right? Well, let's test it out. Antidepressants work, right? Well, let's test that out. Like being able to combine those together, you don't have to get 2 different groups of volunteers. That's a lot more time, money spent. So it's nice to be able to combine these. But there are sometimes drawbacks to using a multi-factor design. So what I want you to do is spend some time here thinking about what do you think are some drawbacks? If you were actually to do this experiment up here, where we have these 6 different treatment groups here, what do you think might end up happening that makes you question your results, if they're valid or not? Or you can brainstorm your other sort of multi-factor things that you can come up with. What do you think are some things that would be not great about using a multi-factor, despite the fact that it saves money and stuff like that? So think about those, brainstorm here. You'll share this with classmates and share out with the whole class when we come in together. We will see you in class.